Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Marvel Legends Retro Carded Ben Reilly Spider-Man. This does feature that new-ish body that we saw in the basic Spider-Man that was on the same type of card not that long ago. Some people absolutely love it and seem to want to defend it to the death, and other people acknowledge its faults, or some people, probably somewhere in between. But this figure is a good example of all the same things that the first one was. It has all of the same flaws. The black suit remedied at least one of them, a couple of them. This one has even more. There is some good, luckily, but there is a lot bad. So get some popcorn ready. Let's go ahead and get this guy off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 16.5 centimeters, just over that. That's going to make him pretty close to 6.5 inches. Now, if you want to see a quick size comparison between the two, using the same body, you'll see that they are almost the exact same height. Black suit is slightly taller because his head is actually a little bit longer. It's a little bit taller at the top, and it goes down a little bit lower at the chin, and that solved one of the problems to a little bit of a degree. If you want to see his review, it'll be up there in the corner. This guy uses the exact same head as the main release, the standard red and blue Spider-Man. However, this is not that version of Spider-Man. So, question of the day. How much does accuracy count for you guys when buying a figure? For instance, his logo on his chest doesn't look right at all. Do you guys care about that sort of thing, or do you only care that the character is getting represented in figure form? For me personally, if it's a big enough difference to the source material, there's no point in it even existing. I don't need a figure of that particular character if the figure isn't one that I like or want, or doesn't represent the character properly. So, for me, it's a problem. You guys can let me know how you feel about that. I know a lot of people are just like, it's of the character I like and I want it. That's perfectly valid. I mean, you can have whatever preferences you have. That's fine. Let's talk about it in the comment section below. Okay, let's just talk about the aesthetic first. That's what we tend to do. I know on the artwork here, the colors are about the same as right here, except the red is a little bit more orange and a little brighter. But in my experience, the blue is usually closer to a navy. Sometimes it's like a steely blue. I don't remember it being this purpley blue very much at all, if ever. You guys can comment on that if you would like. I'm sure a lot of you are more well-versed in Spider-Man history than I am, but I don't remember it ever being this blue. Maybe it has. Also, I just want to comment on, well, we don't need the box anymore. I want to comment on some other things that stand out. Like I said, the chest logo looks horrendous. I have to point that out. Like, that's a big deal. I don't know of an instance where it ever looks like this, where the leg just shoots straight out to the shoulder, and where these legs basically go straight up over the traps. I remember them sticking out and then going up, sticking out and then curving around. And maybe they have that problem because the shoulders are so low and tiny that they can't shape the spider logo properly to get the legs to line up where they need to. The bottom half is close enough to, I think, where it's supposed to be, but it definitely looks weird. We'll get to the anatomy, even though we've already talked about this a few times relatively recently, but I want to talk about the paint job first. They did paint his face in that way where the spider design, the logo, the webbing is not right. In like 99.999% of Spider-Man drawings that are actually the good drawings, not just somebody doing some quick thing for like a wall plate for a light switch or something, the webs all originate in between the eyes and then they span out from there, right? They don't start over here and shoot up to the eye, or over here and shoot up to the eye. They all go to the center and then they curve down around the back. On this one, you can see these are almost straight vertical lines, almost parallel vertical lines going straight up to the face. It ruins the look of the spider design, the webbing design on his face, and it makes his face look extra blocky, though this head is extra blocky from the front. And there's something weird about the eyes. Has anybody else noticed that? I don't think these eyes look right. They look very weird. They definitely aren't. Where'd it go? Oh, I threw it so far away. They definitely aren't those eyes. And those are the eyes I want. These eyes look weird. They're a little bit high up, I think, and they're not quite the right shape. There's something off about them, so that bothers me too. Okay, then the last thing, actually there's three more things paint white. Man, this figure's a mess. This is a very bright red right here at his lower crotch area, but the rest of him is mostly a lot darker. Down here, it almost matches this, but it's not quite the same. But also, they didn't cut the webbing off. It's supposed to be cut off below the knee. In my experience, the webbing's supposed to stop like that. So that's a thing. And then the last thing, paint-wise, other than just the general lack of quality, as far as negatives, they made the armpits blue. And that's generally because in the artwork, the blue kind of goes from the outside to the inside, and it just stops at the armpit. But it doesn't do this. It doesn't have just a blue circle connected to the arm. That looks super weird. Like they don't line up at all. The blue there it stops on the inside of where this blue stops. It makes no sense to have that part blue. It should have just been red if they're going to do it that way. Or they should have actually painted it properly and put the red down a little bit on the bicep area and made the blue swoop in. It's like they're not even trying to do things the right way. It's weird. Like, that looks goofy with those little blue things sticking out. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I will say they did a nice job getting the webbing on the fingers. And they did that for all the alternate hands too, so that's good. The eyes are nice and white, that's good. But that's it. It's very shiny. He's a very glossy figure. The paint job is terrible. In terms of uniformity, in terms of accuracy, in terms of quality, it's just a mess. This is kind of nicely done, except it's almost not even web-shaped, it's more of just a grid. So, man, I don't know. I don't know if people are liking this figure or not, but I'm not having much luck finding much redemption in it, other than it's the Ben Reilly Spider-Man design, which is personally one of my favorites, but this one's just not doing it at all. And I haven't even mentioned how horrible the sculpt is. The tiny shoulders kill it. The bubbly arms kill it. The head being way high up on a long neck with low shoulders makes it look terrible. The crotch gap. I don't think the thighs are too muscular, honestly. I think the thighs look too muscular because of the crotch gap and the terrible shoulders. That kind of thing matters. The weird obliques over here that stick out all the way like a giant lumpy muscle. It's just weird. The giant feet. The proportions and the shaping on this figure are terrible. If you want to see more depth, up there I'll have reviews for the black suit and the original one. I went in on those so you can see all that. But this figure is a mess. There's nothing good about it. And as you can see, it's just jiggling around. That's not an aesthetic thing. The aesthetic's terrible, though. 3 out of 10. I'm having a hard time enjoying anything about this other than they painted the fingers well. Well, who cares about that if the rest looks bad? Speaking of the fingers, as far as accessories go, we get the thwipping hands that come on them in the package. Then we get some wall-crawling hands, and we get some fist hands. And they are painted well enough. We don't get gripping hands or a web line, so, you know, like, this is 100% repaint at this point, and I'll bet you the wrist things aren't even new, because those are obviously an add-on. And we're not getting accessories of any kind, and the price point is $25 for a bad repaint. 3 out of 10 for accessories. The higher the price point, the more repainting we get, the more accessories we need. Not less, or not fewer. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the articulation. We're back to the same neck problem, where the head is not connected to the body. How? How does that happen? How does that become a thing? Anybody that's ever designed an action figure, or held an action figure, or looked at an action figure, or thought about an action figure should have seen that and said, nope, not acceptable. And I know this isn't the first time, so for some of you, you're like, yeah, we know. But maybe somebody doesn't know about the other 2 releases on this body that I've reviewed so far. This is ridiculous. This peg back here, that's not how you do a double ball peg. It shouldn't be all the way down here in the bottom of the neck and have a cutout in the neck to make it lean back a little bit farther. That's absurd. It has no range going forward, no range going side to side, virtually speaking, and then a cutout in the neck to get it to lean back, which, by the way, doesn't even allow it to lean back very far. Like, that's no better than any standard Marvel Legends release. None. Look, hold on. I have one right here. On a figure which is most of the same body, by the way. Let's see how much he can lean his head back. Oh. It's significantly better. Okay, he's got the lollipop syndrome. Can we hide that? Yeah, we can a little bit. It's significantly better. That's nuts. This figure's not exactly an ace, but holy crap is this messed up. The range is terrible on that ball peg. It's ridiculous. The butterfly joint does work nicely. I give him that. The articulation on this figure is one of the strong suits. The tiny shoulders do tuck in. Get the arms out to the side. That's fine. You get your full rotation. You get your bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, which has minimal range considering it's Spider-Man and a very thin body. The wrists have a swivel and a hinge. The diaphragm joint on this guy, this one does make it feel like it's a double ball peg, or it's just, it looks like a single ball peg that's just loose though. It doesn't lean back very far and does get very gappy. Doesn't lean forward very far and gets semi-gappy. Leaning to the side is not bad, but it's not particularly good, and you do get rotation out of it. The lower ab crunch does lean back very far, and it leans forward very far. Not as far as it should, but it does lean forward. But that combination of joints doesn't work. I'll go over it briefly, even though I have done it before. These should be reversed, because now he can lean forward and turn. He can't turn and lean, so you can't ever get him to lean or crunch to the side where you could if this had a rotation in it and the ab crunch was up here. Also, the ab crunch being up here would have held the spider logo together. It doesn't. These need to be flipped. This should be a regular, not upside down ab crunch. This should be a ball peg down here. Rotate those around. Doesn't work the way it is. Hips are on a hinge ball peg, which doesn't help going out to the side, and they go out okay. But let's just compare again to the same body, same general body, same legs, give or take. Look at the range he gets, and look at the range Spider-Man gets. Let me zoom out here. Spider-Man has less range and an over-engineered set of hips. The hinge ball peg in here doesn't help going out to the side at all. It hurts it. Going forward, let's see. This is with the hinge all the way up. We can bring the leg that far. Okay, that's pretty much standard. If we drop that hinge, we can bring the leg up that much. So you do get some advantage, some slight advantage out of that hinge. Is it worth it? I don't think so. It costs them a whole lot more. If they just tried a little bit harder in the hip region, you could probably get pretty close to that same amount of range. So that's a problem. This guy, his legs kick out to the side, but they don't go that much. It's not that different. So, like, a little bit of tweaking. Basic articulation works. The more basic, the better, usually. And this is overly complex. They don't go back at all. Thigh swivel is fine. Double jointed knee works no problem, of course. Boot swivel is fine. Feet go all the way down and all the way forward and have a good ankle rocker. So yeah, the arms, they're ugly. Tiny shoulders, weird bubbly arms, but they function well enough other than the elbows. The torso region doesn't work properly. Doesn't really have that good of range except for this. The hips are okay. Not great. Knees are fine. Lower legs are fine. Head's terrible. This is not one of their better articulated figures, yet the core body is entirely new for Spider-Man, which should be the best there is. It's not. A standard ab crunch and waist twist works better. Check out my Daredevil review at the time this body was released. The hips don't work as well as normal hips. The elbows don't work well. This figure's a mess almost all the way around. Articulation-wise, I'm going to give it maybe 7 if you're really generous because the ankles and knees work well. But the rest of it doesn't. I'm going to go 6 because there's too many problems. And if I didn't give Black Suit Spider-Man a 6 for the articulation, this one shouldn't have. Or this one, it should have it. But they both should have a 6. Okay, I need more sleep. Let's do a final verdict on this release. It's a mess. It's probably worse. It is worse than the first release of this mold. It's definitely worse than Black Suit Spider-Man. The paint job's terrible. The articulation's not good. Accessories not good. There's almost nothing redeeming about this other than it's a popular character design. So I'm going to give this a final rating of 5 out of 10. It's one of the worst, nicer Marvel Legends. Like, there's a lot of paint on it, but it's all bad. There's a lot of points of articulation, but they're all bad. So yeah, not a good release, especially at the higher price point. Being a full repaint, what a bummer. What a dud. Man, I can't get over 4 of these cost $100. For 4 Marvel Legends, you can buy a Mafex figure. I think that's a pretty good trade-off. You'll have fewer figures, but you'll appreciate them more, at least the ones that aren't bad. Yeah, I can't get behind this at all. Let me know how you guys feel about it in the comments section below, and I'll pin a comment if someone says something interesting or insightful or something like that. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down, and if you haven't subscribed, you probably should. I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel, so make sure you come back for all of that. In the meantime, keep collecting.